Hello and welcome everyone. SNS Bills Talk, episode 5 after day 2 of the NFL draft. Lots of storylines, some of them annoyingly so, but
Hmm.
as always, lots of drama is probably sports' best reality TV show. So, Dr. Duncan, Lawrence Foster with us. Thoughts on day 2?
I mean, I thought it went fine. Like, if we're talking just Bills, I thought it went great. I don't really have any complaints. I think that we really filled up some major holes in the defense, especially with a couple of guys being suspended for 6 games. So we took whom I think the Bills thought were the best available guys that fit our culture. I think that was the biggest thing. And so I am overall so far. I'd give us a B plus.
Plus. All right. And I think I'll be a little bit less than that, but uh, the Bills fans can't be mad about like not addressing positions of need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into it yet, but I'll say why that doesn't really give me much to go off. But going with the first one, wheeling and dealing, BBB. If you don't know what that means, look it up. I'm not going to tell you. Moves up to take Sanders, defensive tackle, early in the round. That gave up the Bills swapped second round picks, gave up their other, and they also gave up their first fourth round pick. Two of them get them, plus a third round pick and a seventh round pick. So you're a little bit more high on this than I am. So let's start with you. We do the good cop, bad cop thing here.
Yeah, and if I go mute for a second, it's because I sneezed. Um, so yeah, I mean, at first it was a guy that I was like, Sanders. I've heard his name before because I've watched South Carolina play a few games, but I didn't know too much about him. Um, but that being said, right, like they stayed put yesterday and they got Hairston, and so they moved up considerably to get this guy. And at some point we just have to trust them that their talent evaluation says, hey, we didn't expect this guy to be here. We have him rated really high. He does the things that we want, right? I mean, I think in general, like, they want a pass rush. They want it from on the ends up the middle. They want it everywhere. He's not small. He's 6'3" and a half, 6'4", 300 pounds. um, and so he, there it
There it
was.
is.
It was Bruin. He's not terrible against the run, right? And so I think it. Yeah, I think you don't like it as much as I do because he is a relative unknown, but he was rated decently high as a defensive tackle. Sure, would I have liked us to be able to sit and wait to get him? Absolutely. But again, I trust. I think Bean has shown. Make sure he's hit on some, missed on others. But I don't know. He's earned my trust, so I choose to look at it as a glass half full.
See, he's earned trust. I don't feel like he's earned it with the defensive line. The Bills have poured in endless resources on the defensive line. I believe this is their ninth defensive lineman taken in their drafts. And as good as like as much as we like Greg Rousseau, as much as we like Ed Oliver, or either of them what you would want a first round pick to be, production wise, Group goes games without putting up sack production. Ed Oliver disappears. Like I just, it's the history that I don't trust at defensive line.
Yeah, and I would agree. So yes, I'm torn, right? Because for like Greg, I think we don't count enough what he does in terms of his run support and his ability to set the edge. I'm sure it doesn't often go to sack production, but man, he had a ton of pressures, and I feel like a lot of that was due to holes in the secondary where they just get the ball out. Teams get the ball out so fast that he just couldn't finish it. Sure, is he a game record? Not yet, but he's there. But yeah, sure. For every Greg, you have an AJ, you have a Boogie. Ed thus far I mean, last year was definitely a down year for him. And I think maybe that's where you're, in a way, like this subconscious, you're like, you know what, we already drafted a lighter, even though, you know, Ed's 280 to 290 defensive tackle. He's not Aaron Donald. He's not Warren Sapp. Like, what is this guy going to be? Why did we just go and, you know, give up 2 seconds and a fourth to get this guy? And again, I feel some of that, but I just, watching his highlights, just reading a little bit more about him, I don't know, I feel optimistic for this guy.
And I mean, the Bills obviously had a agenda of getting a pass rush from whoever they were drafting. I just think about how many times are the Bills just getting gashed with the run, and it seems like they're okay with that, which
I know you hate.
The AFC teams are starting to build up their running games. You're going to still have the Ravens. You got to deal with it. Like, I don't understand why they didn't run the ball against us in the playoffs, why they felt they had to have Lamar try to win the game with his arm. You have the AFC West building up their running games. Chargers getting Marion Hampton, Raiders getting Genty. I hate getting run on, and it seems like the Bills don't care. They just want to get people who can get after the passer. But if they play smart teams, they got to prove to me they can stop the run.
Sure.
So TJ Sanders, upside, sure, it's there. Just like I would say, like if you keep whipping on quarterback, you got to keep doing it till you hit it. I guess the Bills are we got to keep doing defensive line until we hit it. So I get it. I don't love what they gave up for him, especially with the trades before that. Like Miami moved up 11 spots and only had to give up a 4th rounder. Right. We moved up 15 to get and gave up a 2nd and our first 4th, which is like almost a 3rd because right at the top of the 4th round. So I didn't love that either, but
we did get a 3rd.
But again, that was 10 spots lower. So I wasn't thrilled with that. It was not a great start to the night.
Oh, yeah, I can tell.
And it went from there. But at least, and I'll get to the end. But our second pick, the Buffalo Bills. If you know, you're going to know what this means. Victor Zaz. The Bills take explosive edge Landon Jackson. For any nerds out there, any Batman fans, you know what that means. I thought, I'm like, Victor, the hitman. But hopefully he's a hitman of quarterbacks. Thoughts on Landon Jackson in the 3rd round?
He's one that I definitely judged the book by its cover. I just looked at him like, man, he just looks kind of dopey. But shame on me. They showed him in just, I forget the condition that he has.
I don't know the name of it either, but
yeah. But just, he seems like he's, again, talk about the Bills, and I think the number one priority or probably number 2 is high character guys. He definitely seems like another high character guy. He has that foundation. And in a way, my wife said this, but like you look at him, it just reminds me of Max Crosby. Like, obviously he's not covered in tattoos, and hopefully he doesn't have the substance abuse problems. But he just looks like a dude. He's long, he block kicks, knocks down a ton of passes, and so he's a guy for which even if he can't get to the quarterback, he's going to be able to likely impact the play somehow. He has a tremendous motor, and he's a guy that, I wouldn't call him a steal, but he's pretty darn close. A lot of people had him rated much higher than guys that went before him. So that was a pick that that was a good pick. I liked it.
Yeah, and he was like some are arguing bottom of the 1st, early 2nd round guy. The Bills got in the 3rd. And you mentioned earlier about the suspensions for 2 of the Bills' free agent signings along the defensive line. After 6 games, something's going to have to give in terms of the numbers game, just purely on a roster building standpoint. Landon Jackson might have the benefit of like in terms of being active. He seems like from I read, like could be a special teams guy with his speed and stuff. So giving him an edge over like AJ Epinesa or somebody. But you think of the 2 D tackles they added now Landon Jackson, they added TJ Sanders. Uh, I think that's the next logical discussion is who do you think is going to maybe traded, maybe a surprise release, or do you think they keep everybody they have?
I mean, if I'm just so I have the roster pulled up right now, and I look at a guy like Daquan Jones, Zion Logue, you know, dudes that are. I mean, Daquan had his moments, but there's a lot of times he just was not there, right? And he's a little bit older, and so he very well could be somebody who gets cut. In terms of defensive end, right? Like we have Rousseau, Epinesa, Solomon, and Landon Jackson. So I think we'll likely keep all 4 of those, but right now we have 6 defensive tackles. So I think it's likely that 2 of those are going to be either practice squad or just
Dwayne
outright
Carter too from last year.
Right, and so because we had him or drafted him last year, I don't think we'll cut him. He's one for which I would love to hear McDermott say, like, why? Like once he was back from that wrist injury, why didn't we play him?
Yep.
Right, because like when Ed was hurt, it seemed like Carter was playing well.
Yep.
So
and I read that. I won't take credit for this thought. I heard it on the radio. The Bills have a benefit of they're going to have 2 free roster spots that they normally wouldn't have because of the suspensions.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 guys won't count, so they'll have essentially get 55 players, and then they'll have 6 weeks to figure out maybe somebody's really not playing well, maybe somebody gets hurt. So I guess that is one benefit of having the numbers and then those 2 guys suspended is that, all right, maybe Daquan continues his downward trend and then 5 weeks in, right, see you later. We got these other guys coming back.
Yeah.
Just straight up cut them. That's going to be the biggest thing to me this off, like all the mini camps and stuff and training camp is who's going to step up there. Does Carter rebound? Is he motivated now to show what he has? Because he was a 3rd-round pick last year. It's not like he was a forgotten 7th round, just, all right, let's see what we got type thing.
Yeah.
So he's drafted the same round Landon Jackson is that Bills are expecting things out of. So big battles there. Lots of picks heading into day 3 tomorrow. So not just thinking player-wise, because knowing who's there is not possible. What maybe roster construction-wise do you hope the Bills accomplish tomorrow with their picks? With the picks exclusively.
Right. Listen to you. With the picks exclusively. I would like us with our 4th round pick to take a receiver. Take somebody who has a skill set that we don't have. So I had mentioned to you earlier that I was looking at Ty Felton. Minnesota took him with the very last pick in the draft, and so I was actually looking a little bit earlier. I like Shedeur Dyke out of Florida, just because again he has a lot of top end speed. Jalen Royals out of Utah. Frankly, I'm a little surprised that he's still there. Most people had a second or a late second, early 3rd round grade on him. So just getting somebody who again has the run after the catch ability. Shakir has that some, and that's sort of why I'm leaning more towards Dyke because he has 4.3 speed, and that which I think is a skill set that we don't necessarily have.
And that's something that we know Bean has thought about because when they talked about Hairston after day 1, they specifically mentioned he brought speed, which they don't really have in the secondary.
Right.
So that's something they're actually thinking about is like adding something. So that would make sense what you said about the 4-3s. We don't have that guy.
No.
And then I think that goes along with, I think when I think of last year, I think of really poor special teams. And to me, that's what day 3 should be about, is getting players that will add to that, because that will cost the Bills eventually more than it did last year. They were able to overcome, I think, pretty poor special teams play. So the speed is, I mean, at wide receiver, that'd be a great addition, not just for receiver, like special teams purposes too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's again. So that get another receiver, add to the running back room, because guys get hurt, right? And so Cam Scattaboo, I think someone will take him in the 4th round tomorrow. But
Yeah,
just dude who, I watched him in the playoffs, and dude, he's a dude who runs. He gives you your all every single down. Catch the ball out of the backfield, which we obviously like a lot. So just fill in on the offense. Maybe take a offensive line position that's a bit more of a project. I know that was sort of what Tommy Doyle was. He obviously got hurt and having to retire. So getting another big dude that can sort of come in and maybe in 2-3 years be ready to provide some meaningful snaps.
So the Bills picks, just to review, since we're talking about it, they have the 30th pick of the 4th round, which is 132 overall.
Yeah.
They don't have 5th round pick until compensatory time, but they have 3 within a 4 pick span. They have the 33rd, which is 169 overall. They have the 34th and the 5th, 170. Then they have the 37th and the 5th, which is 170.
And then they have the 1st pick and the 6th.
Yeah, so they have a whole bunch of selections right close together.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see them move stuff to get into the 4th to get somebody.
Yeah.
But lots of stuff for the Bills to do. Tomorrow's a day where even somebody like me, I'm obsessed with the draft, have been since I was a kid. I would make my family listen to it on the way back from spring vacations in the car before cell phones existed. So we had to scan and find all the radio stations. I'm like, we're listening to it. Our car broke down, and I was upset because I wouldn't be able to. But even that, I don't know who the people drafted on that day. It's more like positionally, are they fitting something the Bills could use?
Right. And, that's frankly, if we're being honest, that's where Bean has been his best. It's finding these diamonds in the rough in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. Granted, obviously not every one of them has turned out, but between Milano, Benford, was it Shakir, a 4th round?
Shakir was 4th.
4th round. So, you've got
Davis was a later round pick, and for that.
Yeah. And so, at least those first 3 guys, they got a second contract out of us. So,
no. Well, that draft with Benford, with Bernard,
and Shakir.
with Shakir. I mean, if aside from Elam, that was a pretty good draft, because even Balin Spector in the 7th round, he started and plays game for us.
Mm-hmm.
So
hopefully he doesn't anymore. But
no, but the fact that he actually didn't just AJ Klein it up is at least something.
You know what? You put some respect on AJ Klein's name, mister.
Yeah, you remember he won defensive player of their week once. But he's the reason we lost the Chiefs playoff game a few years ago. But overall NFL stories, cover a little bit of that. You and I have talked about it a few times. I brought up yesterday, well, what if Milroe goes ahead of Shedeur Sanders? It wasn't just Milroe. It was the Louisville quarterback.
It was everyone.
Dylan Gabriel.
That was it.
I mean, you could hear Mel Kiper saying, even when he's discussing Gabriel, saying, come on, which I can't stand. But
yeah,
what do you think the reason is for his proverbial fall? Because maybe it's not a fall. It just that's where the media thought he was going to go. Obviously, NFL teams don't agree.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a handful of his games. So I mean, I watched the entire Baylor Colorado game cover to cover, right? That one where they won with that crazy pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to argue that he's not talented. Okay, it's like I see a guy who can extend plays. Who, you know, people who don't like him, you cannot discount the fact that he was running for his life all the time. He was the most sacked quarterback in college. He had no run game. The only person he had to truly depend on was Travis Hunter, right? And still, he put up really good numbers. He was an accurate quarterback. I'm sure they didn't win a ton of games, but you could argue it was because, again, it was just him and Travis Hunter. And Travis Hunter did everything he could. You could not ask any more of Travis Hunter. And so if it's not the talent, right, it's got to be the character stuff. And I said this in our text earlier, it almost feels like the entire NFL is sending a message to him and all college players is that it's not about you. And we don't care who your father is. Okay. If your teammates do not like you, if you are arrogant, if you have up this sideshow and you're going to be a distraction, unless you are supremely talented, unless you are number one overall pick worthy, you and your circus can sit home and have nothing to talk about because we're not going to draft you. It's just what it feels like because, frankly, and again, I don't love Shedeur Sanders, but in what world is Jalen Milroe better than him? Right? In what world is Dylan Gabriel, who had Oregon's everything? Right? How many Oregon guys have been drafted already? Is Dylan Gabriel better than Shedeur Sanders? But they do have one thing, right? We don't hear about them. They have better character, and they're not doing all this showboating, this legendary BS, and in my opinion, hiding behind the cover of a God's plan, which makes me sick. Yeah. So that is what I think is happening. And frankly, when does it end? When does somebody say, "All right, we'll take him"?
Well, the problem
if he doesn't get drafted.
But the problem for him is, you mentioned the circus, teams that have starters who maybe would like, oh, I'm going to take a developmental guy. They're not going to bring that in to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I have talked about, we wouldn't mind the Bills taking like Kyle McCord or somebody on day 3.
Yeah.
Like I would not want, even though Shedeur is a better quarterback, I would not take Shedeur Sanders.
Oh.
Because why do we want to have the backup quarterback be a topic of conversation all the time? And then unless somebody double dips, the teams who need quarterbacks have already essentially grabbed other than Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Which even that's surprising.
Yeah.
Like
it's got to be Aaron Rodgers related is my thought.
Yeah, but I mean, unless Aaron said, I won't come if you draft the guy, and he's waiting to see if they'll hold true to his word.
There was a report that the Steelers said they needed to know by like day 2 of the draft, and they think like Aaron told him, and then probably like you said, he's probably waiting a second. Do they actually hold true to what they want?
Yeah, like I won't mentor another quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for him, he wants all the resources put into winning now. He doesn't care about 2 years down the road.
Right.
But to me, that's the biggest thing you mentioned. Like, is he going to get drafted? It's going to have to be a double dip or a team like I don't know who to like. The Raiders maybe taking somebody who's Deion's friends with Tom or something like that.
Who took Milroe?
That's a good question.
Because Cleveland took
Seattle.
Oh yeah, Seattle, and then Cleveland took the Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, because I mean, Seattle. I guess that does make sense if you believe that Darnold is your starter for the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah. All right, take this athletic freak and see what you can get out of him. I mean, I thought for the Saints, get Sanders and Slow or what the heck his name is.
Yeah.
Guy. And yeah, all right, boys. May the best man win. And see, the Raiders at this point, it just makes the most sense because frankly, you do have that for whatever Dion's star is. Tom Brady's star is 100 times brighter.
Yeah.
Right. And on top of it, it's just like who better to between Gino and whatever else to like mentor this guy. I don't know. The Raiders just seem like to make the most sense because Gino, you have him for 2 more years. I still can't believe he's getting as much money as he is. And then I don't know. Like the Raiders do make too much sense. And you know what? If the Raiders do snag him tomorrow early on, well, boy, well played.
And the thing about the Raiders, they just had 2 picks at the end of the third in a row, and they still didn't take them.
This is true.
But I mean, whoever takes them will get Mel Kiper's best grade of the draft. We know that for sure.
They got a Z. I mean, they got A+ or they got a whatever S.
And I've watched ESPN's drafts since I can remember. How they're talking about Sanders has legitimately made me want to just go to NFL Network and watch that from now on.
Yeah,
because they at least talk about the players who are drafted.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. They're skipping over the players. You'd think they were passing over Peyton Manning.
Yeah. And what does it say about Kiper's ranking that he was the top quarterback overall, top player in the draft, one of the top, and then he's on day 3. So something's wrong with his rankings and how he looks at players.
Can we say unconscious bias?
That as well. But continuing just from yesterday, winners and losers. We mentioned yesterday Cleveland. I think Cleveland continued to win the draft again today. They're building up a solid team. They got a quarterback without having to give up anything or pass on top-tier talent. To me, Cleveland's one of the early winners for the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, they got the second best linebacker in the draft. It's very obvious that they're building up the defense, and as a team, they're going to lean on the defense to try to win games. I still can't help but think they're playing the long game for next year. But I mean, I've liked what Cleveland has done so far. Frankly, I like what Arizona has done. I like all of their picks. Will Johnson, assuming he's healthy, that I think could be the steal of the draft to get him midway in the second round. I liked Jordan Birch for us, and they were able to get him midway in the third round. So that was good. And as much as I hate to admit, I mean, I think assuming that all of his legal stuff is behind, Mike Green for the Ravens. That was a really solid pick between Mike Green and Dovin for Dallas. Actually, last thing I'll say, even though I think Dallas reached with Tyler Booker, getting Dovin in the second round, for which most people had him as a mid to late first round grade, and then Shaven Ravel, a team that doesn't necessarily need him to play right away, but a guy that had first round talent. I think that was a pretty good pickup for them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Ravens. I was going to mention them. I mean, they got Malachi Starks without moving up.
Yeah.
You talk about like young safety tandems now, him and Hamilton. They got Mike Green if his legal stuff's behind him way sooner than they thought. And I don't like to say it about the Chiefs either, but they've had a solid drafting where they do, and they always seem to find a way to do it. I mean, they got Josh Simmons, who, injury aside, probably would have been right up there with Will Campbell.
Yep.
They got a D tackle who I liked out of Tennessee. So, unfortunately, a couple of the teams the Bills have to deal with to get to the Super Bowl continue to do it. That's why they're great. They continue to draft well. So, but these are the 2 days of the draft that pretty much NFL fans care about. Tomorrow's the hardcore people. But even that, like, I'll just be watching on my phone, following along.
Right.
But any closing thoughts before we end tonight's show?
I just want to sort of re-up on what I said yesterday, in that I think the Jags are overthinking it and they're making mistakes. You know, I won't belabor the trade or the trade they made yesterday, but then taking Caleb Ransaw with their third round pick, a guy that was, I mean, a fifth or sixth round at best prospect, and taking him in the third round when they just took Travis Hunter doesn't make a lot of sense. And the same thing with that guard out of West Virginia. Again, just from what I read, people had a high fourth, low fifth round grade on him, and they have 2 picks early in the fourth round. So I don't know. I feel like they reached a lot. And the rookie GM is sort of, drafting like a rookie GM. And on the flip side, a team that we didn't mention, you hate that when your foes are doing well. But I think the Houston Texans have so far had a really good draft.
Yeah.
Receiver was obviously a big need for them, and they came out and got 2 solid receivers that could contribute. And another big thing is they were trying to, protect C.J. Stroud, and they got a pretty good tackle today as well.
Yep. And they're kind of doing what teams want to do with young quarterbacks, right? They're giving them everything they need to succeed. Whereas the Bills are now at Josh's stage in the career, like they expect him to make everybody on his side of the ball better around him and build up the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That and the Texans have a pretty strong defense.
They do
overall.
Yeah.
So yeah, but thankfully, the rest of the AFC South is kind of bleh. So
yes.
But day 2 in the books. Day 3 coming out tomorrow. We will have a complete draft recap and roster breakdown Sunday night at our normally scheduled time. But we want to do a couple special ones this week with the draft here and now. So thank you everybody for stopping in, watching. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple as soon as I get that fixed. We're always on YouTube on Sticks and Skins. For Dr. Duncan, I am Lawrence Foster. We close it as we always do with Go Bills.